This is Radio RSA, the voice of South Africa from Johannesburg.
This news bulletin comes to you from Radio RSA, the external service of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. The Supreme Court in the South African city of Port Elizabeth has annulled the government restriction order of a black activist, Mr. Mkhuseli Jack. The court accepted the defense argument that the restriction order was invalid because the South African Minister of Law and Order, Mr. Louis Lecranse, had failed to state his reasons. The minister was ordered to pay costs. Another black activist, Mr. Henry Fuzzy, who was restricted at the same time as Mr. Jack, has also appealed against his restriction. It is the third time in the last week that the South African judiciary has annulled government restrictions. Earlier, 16 people had their detention orders declared invalid by the Bloemfontein Supreme Court, while shortly afterwards, the Johannesburg Supreme Court ordered the release of 3 detainees. The South African police say 3 black people have been killed in unrest-related incidents. The 3, 2 women and a man, were burnt to death. In a statement released in Victoria, the police said damage estimated at about $500,000 was caused at the Natal University in the coastal city of Durban after it had been petrol-bombed. The statement said 4 explosions took place at a substation in Durban. No one was injured in the blasts. The statement also said several incidents of violence, stone-throwing and arson was reported from around South Africa. A month before the coronation of Swaziland's Crown Prince Mangosuthu, typhoid has broken out in the Lubamba area, the traditional center of the kingdom. A Swazi newspaper said a schoolgirl had died, and that a campaign would begin tomorrow to ensure that maximum precautions were taken. The coronation of the 18-year-old Crown Prince, who succeeds King Sobhuza II, will be one of the biggest events ever held in Swaziland. The Central African Republic Minister of Education, Mr. Johannesburg, has threatened to close down all the country's secondary schools indefinitely unless students end a 12-day strike. Speaking in a radio broadcast from Bangui, Mr. Ngopande said the government could not tolerate continued disruption of classes by what he described as a handful of professional agitators. He said the schools would be closed down indefinitely unless classes resumed by tomorrow. Mr. Ngopande said 10 strike leaders had been detained. The school children are protesting against the introduction of tough selection criteria aimed at limiting the number of government scholarships. Reports from Kota in Ethiopia say exploratory talks between southern Sudanese rebels and supporters of Khartoum's government appear to have collapsed. Sources close to both sides said there was no possibility of a ceasefire. They said the meeting had been expected to last at least a week, but would end today after earlier differences over membership of the delegations had already delayed the start of the talks, the first between the two sides. The Swaziland Commissioner of Police, Mr. Sandile Mdziniso, says police have discovered a large consignment of drugs at Swaziland's only international airport near the central town of Manzini. Speaking in Mbaban, Mr. Mdziniso said the drugs had been found in several crates sent from India and other countries. He declined to specify the type of drugs found. And now to end the news, the main points again. A Malagasy government official says cyclone Onoronina, which swept across Madagascar last week, killed 32 people, made thousands homeless, and caused damage estimated at $150 million. The South African Minister of Transport Affairs, Mr. Hendrik Skuman, says plans are well underway for the establishment of 2 projects which will make aviation in South Africa safer. President Michel of Mozambique has announced reforms in his country's armed forces, which are said to be having severe organizational problems. And there we end this bulletin of world news from the English service of Radio RSA, broadcasting from Johannesburg in the 31 and 49 meter bands.